Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Patrick Murphy and Matt Baxendell in just a moment. Obviously not the show we wanted to have today. The news broke last night that Seth McLaughlin has suffered a torn Achilles and will miss the rest of the season, and just terrible news. Now the Buckeyes have lost both of their, in my opinion, their best offensive linemen, with Josh Simmons, of course, out for the season, and now Seth. Where do they go from here? Do they move Carson Hinzman back to center and maybe put Austin Siereveld in at left guard? Or do they leave Carson Hinzman at left guard, and do they put redshirt freshman Josh Padilla in at center? Or is Luke Montgomery going to be involved? We're going to get Patrick's thoughts on that, Back's thoughts on that, and we'll talk more about it. But just tough news for the Buckeyes. I do want to let you guys know about our sponsor, Cornbread Hemp. I know you guys are liking it because we were told a lot of people from Bucknuts are buying this product, so that's why they're back as a sponsor, so welcome back. And we can give you guys a great deal. Cornbread invented the first USDA organic THC edible, and it's legal for anyone 21 and older in the United States. The gummies have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy for just the right dose, perfect for taking the edge off without making you feel anxious or paranoid like other cannabis edibles. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. Again, they've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal. As a special offer for Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/bucknuts. Use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/bucknuts, and use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. Speaking of the happy hour, let's bring in the host of the Bucknuts Happy Hour, Patrick Murphy.
You took the words right out of my mouth there, Dave. I was going to say, what an introduction.
I was going to say, I mean, we got to maybe get them as to sponsor your show too. Kind of
Yeah,
would be a happy hour.
I imagine there were people that woke up this morning to the news of Seth McLaughlin and needed some of that before they went to work. Well, probably not before you go to work, but
I mean, with Cornbread Hemp, it's low dose, it just takes the edge off a little bit. So maybe at work, I don't know. But anyway, so, I mean, what do you think they're going to do? I think there's two, Luke Montgomery could be, I guess, plan C, but to me, there's two choices here. Move Hinzman to center and put Siereveld in at left guard, or leave Hinzman at left guard and put Padilla in at center. Padilla's played in mop-up duty the last couple of weeks. Former wrestler, former Wayne Warrior, redshirt freshman. What do you think they're going to do?
I think most likely the most obvious situation, and I wrote about this last night that got published this morning on the site, is to the first one you said, to put Carson Hinzman in at center and put Siereveld or Luke Montgomery, I guess, who did come in at left guard when Donovan Jackson moved to left tackle initially at left guard. To me, that just makes the most sense, especially given you only have a few days to get this done and be ready for Indiana. If there was a bye week, kind of like there was after the Josh Simmons injury, maybe you have more time to experiment and whatnot. But with a game like the Hoosiers coming to town on Saturday, there's not a lot of opportunity here to compete, experiment, whatever you want to say. The timing of this couldn't have been much worse if we're talking strictly from a football perspective. Losing a guy like Seth at a crucial time, it's almost as bad as losing Josh Simmons when they did, just given the importance of that position and how well Seth had played. So, yeah, I think you go with Carson Hinzman just based on the experience factor alone. Hope that he has learned this offseason when competing and working with Seth and then obviously playing alongside him these last few games. The one thing I will say is when we've talked to Carson, he's talked basically about how refreshing it is to play guard and not have to worry about some of the things you have to worry about as the center with the calls and things like that. So, he's going to have to, if that is the way the Buckeyes go, he's obviously going to have to pick that stuff back up and be okay with some of that again, with all of that again. He does have veterans around him. He will have Will Howard behind him. So that's somewhat comforting, but can't understate what this injury means for the Buckeyes.
No, it's definitely Gosh, just tough news. Let's bring in Matt Baxendell before we kick it to back. First of all, welcome in, Bax. Good to see you.
Morning, guys.
Got the three-man backfield today. So I want to ask Patrick this. I mean, what are you hearing about Padilla? I'm hearing there's actually some smoke to this. My first instinct was Hinzman to center, Siereveld to left guard. So maybe that's the most logical scenario. But there seems to be they're at least kicking the idea around of starting Padilla at center and keeping Hinzman at left guard. Is that what you're hearing, or at least considering that?
I don't want to say that that's what I'm hearing, but I do know that they very much like Josh Padilla in the Woody, and there's a reason he started to get some backup reps the last couple weeks. He has done some good things in practice, from my understanding, and so again, I think if you had more time to get him ready to start, because obviously no one was thinking about this, that might be the direction that they would go, just to keep Carson for the reasons I just listed at left guard. I just don't think there's enough time to get a guy who's only played a handful of snaps at the college level ready for Indiana, which has a good defensive line, going to give you some things. Michigan, which is pretty good up front, despite they've
got two great defensive tackles. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you win those games, you're playing Oregon and that defensive line, which you saw minus Birch. And then you're in the playoff where every team you play is going to have something up front. So, I think right now you go with Carson against Indiana, but it would not surprise me if they are able to get Josh Padilla up to speed in the next couple weeks. Maybe you do that. I just can't see them throwing him out there. I think that would be almost, it has the potential to look almost as bad as it did with Zen Polsky against Nebraska, with kind of what's on the line in a game like that.
Bax, what do you think they're going to do?
Well, this isn't an injury from a game. Think about this. This happened yesterday in a practice, so they have exactly 2 practices and a walkthrough till the game. So this is it's not just that oh no, we have to make a change at the line. It's you have half of a week of getting the guys ready. To me alone, I think that spells Padilla, because he's been repping at the position. Whether he's played in a game or not, let's be real serious here. You have 2 days of practice to figure out what you're doing. Can Hinzman step back in? Did he rep as the backup center? Of course. Was he good at that? Of course. Was Siereveld perfectly fine when he started multiple games to guard this year? Of course. But at this point, I think we're sitting at right now with 2 practices to go, and Padilla's been the one in practice at center. I think also you have to think about, how are you going to succeed against Indiana? Well, Hinzman and Jackson have been next to each other now in 2 games, and they've been very good, just like they were last year when they were at center and guard. They have good chemistry next to each other. They play well next to each other. To me, look, none of these are good options. So the least difficult option right now is to start Padilla this game and say, look, we have to give him a shot, because let's face it, there's not enough time to all of a sudden switch things around. Is that fair to Carson Hinzman either? Hey, you've been playing guard for the last month. Back to center. Right. I think that Padilla is the only real option in my brain. Now, I'm not Ryan Day. I don't get paid millions of dollars to make these decisions, but I'd have to pick Padilla and say that's just what we're going with this week. And then we'll see how that goes against Indiana before you make any longer term decisions.
I did reach out to a contact on the coaching staff, and that's to ask. I'm not joking. Just to throw a line in the water. They have not got back with me yet. What are you guys going to do? They're not saying anything yet. I don't know why. I wouldn't
say anything till game time.
I thought I had the bat phone. Apparently, I have the backup phone. I don't know.
Would you say anything? Would you tell Indiana anything? I wouldn't say a word about it. We'll adjust.
I did tell this person, if you don't want me to say anything, I won't say anything. But I don't want to say stuff like Josh Padilla's an option here when they're not even considering it. But I'm hearing that is a legitimate option. And one thing I like about Padilla, wrestling background. I've talked about this a lot. If you're a lineman and you have a wrestling background, that is huge, because wrestling just teaches you so much with hand-to-hand combat, balance, just that one-on-one combat. There's just nothing like it. And just how to be able to – defensive lineman and offensive lineman. So if they go with Padilla, Bax, we'll stay with you. Hey, next man up. It reminds me of 10 years ago, not the exact same situation, but Braxton Miller's hurt, season's over. Lose Virginia Tech, season's over. Oh, maybe not. JT Barrett hurt, season's over. So you never know.
This is definitely the most O-line shuffling I can remember us doing in a season, though. I mean, I'm trying to think back because my OSU memory is now 2+ decades of extreme attention paid since I arrived in 02 as a freshman. We've never had a year like this where we have had so much shuffling on the O-line. This is now 2 senior starters. I would argue the 2 best linemen on the line. I mean, Jonathan Jackson probably not like me saying that, but you've lost 2 of at least your 3 best linemen, 2 guys that were looking to hear their names called in the NFL draft. McLaughlin had played his way up to probably a mid-round pick. Padilla was probably a later guy. Or not Padilla, sorry. Simmons was probably a later guy. So right now you're looking at, losing 2 guys that, would have had a chance to play on Sundays off of this line. And full speed forward. And look, everybody loves to say, hey, who won a national title with a 3rd-string quarterback? Well, the reality is they won that national title with a big, mean, nasty line of Ohio guys that were all in those trenches together the whole year. This is the hardest thing to do. And they'd already sort of figured out one hold it together with chicken wire and duct tape solution. So now words that I didn't think would come out of my mouth, but Ohio State's national championship hopes rest upon Josh Padilla being able to play center at an elite level. That's what we're looking at. I mean, at least a good enough level. And the fact that he's a wrestler is always one of those things that makes you go, okay, we have a shot here. It's not like he's like some just super athletic guy. We're like, well, he can't catch, so we can't play him at tight end. He was a wrestler. He's mean. So we'll give him that. But, really, this is we're going to be all holding our breath watching the offense here for the next few weeks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, Pat, if you're a Buckeye fan, how much are you panicking right now about this? Or are you not panicking about this?
Well, given the Buckeye fans I've heard from in the last little bit and some of the stuff I saw on the front row, I think people are rightfully in panic mode. You mentioned 2014. Bax, you're right. It's a great story. Does it happen all the time? No, that's why it's a great story, right? And
Nope.
I saw the comment there that you put on the screen from Brian about offensive line recruiting. Look, I think you take the starting center and the starting left tackle off of most top teams, you're probably not in a good place offensively. I mean, even, take the best recruiting offensive line team. It's probably problematic at the worst, especially, again, this time of year with 2 games left in the regular season and 2 tough opponents, maybe 3 tough opponents upcoming. I think there's reason for concern. And I think until you see it on Saturday and maybe even a couple Saturdays, Buckeye fans have the right to be concerned. This is a team that, as Bax pointed out, you already overcame 1 offensive line crucial injury. Doing 2 in 1 season is really difficult. So, these are the 2 positions you probably, if we're talking just offensive line, probably could afford to lose a guy the least. And they've lost both of them. And like to the point of offensive line recruiting, like this didn't come into the season as like, this is the best offensive line in the country. Maybe they've played, their way into a Joe Moore Award semifinalist or whatever it was that they were, but now you're asking to reshuffle that and expect the same level of production, and that's hard to do.
Even when everybody was healthy coming into the season, we thought, right, this is the biggest question mark, at least on the offense, and they overall played well. Then you lose Simmons, you lose McLaughlin, the 2 most important positions, and whatever. I think center is the most important position on the offensive line because you're the quarterback to the O-line. Left tackle, also extremely important. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, Bax, if Justin Fry can figure this out, I think he's done a good job coaching the O-line since, Simmons got hurt, and really has done a good job coaching the O-line, throughout the year. I think he leaves a lot to be desired on the recruiting trail. I'm not breaking news there, but man, if Justin Fry can get this done, Buckeyes can still achieve their goals this year. He's going to never hear another negative word from Buckeye Nation.
Oh, he'll hear negative words from Buckeye Nation if he doesn't start recruiting better. Let's be blunt here.
Title.
If we win a national title and he still can't recruit, wasn't Jim Bowman on the O-line or on the national title staff in 02? I mean, let's be real here. And the Walrus is the one we talk about all the time as the bad offensive line.
Ed Warner, we like Ed Warner as the O-line coach. We just
I
didn't
don't
like
think
Ed
Warner
the
likes
offensive
us,
coordinator.
though. So
Jim Bowman didn't have the offensive coordinator title. I don't think he would have been as hated by Buckeye fans because Tressel was really the O coordinator. Anyway,
yeah, I think with Bowman, it was just that he thought that tackles could play center and centers could play tackle. I mean, that was the thing. And but that might have also, they'll come back and go, it was a Tressel decision, not carry so many linemen, blah, 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 blah. Look, I get it, right? But look, at the end of the day, this is an opportunity for Justin Fry. This is an opportunity for him to show that he's able to help coach these guys. I don't care if it's really Tim Drevno behind the scene or not. If OSU can once again duct tape, chicken wire, super glue together a line that makes a run here, then that's a big deal. And by the way, this is also the worst possible timing I could think of to lose an All-American caliber center, because you're playing a good Indiana team, right? But in 2 weeks, the only thing that I really care about this season, and I think a lot of people really care about this season, is where you have a team in Michigan that hasn't got a lot, but they got 2 elite D tackles coming in at a new center. Yikes. The Ann Arbor people right now have hope for the first time in months in this game, knowing that Seth McLaughlin's out. That's scary.
Patrick, it's time for the defense to carry this team. And they don't need to carry the team. The offense is still going to be, with Will Howard, and these weapons, the offense is still going to be fine. It's not ideal, obviously, losing these offensive linemen. But the defense, now, hey, man, defense, time to step up and show you're the best defense in the country.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's funny. Just yesterday, you and I are talking after the press conferences about the secondary and Denzel Burke and things like that. Man, the pressure's on now. You've got to look, like you said, the best defense in the country to keep these upcoming opponents in check. Give your offense some room to breathe a little bit. And look, the Buckeyes have done that. We saw it the Missouri game last year. We saw it a number of times in the past year plus. Where the defense has stepped up. But, we also saw the Oregon game where the defense struggled a little bit. And so the pressure is certainly on. I also think the offensive coaching staff, Chip Kelly, just the game plan here in general, I didn't like against Nebraska that they weren't getting the ball out quickly. I think you look around, especially in the NFL, when you see offensive lines get banged up and guys, coming off waivers and stuff, quick passing game, the things that Ohio State gets done to it in non-conference games that we heard early in the season, the excuses about no sacks and things like that. Let's see that, this weekend against Indiana. Don't have Will Howard standing there with the guy immediately in his face because whoever's starting at center isn't the starting center. Have some schemed things to help protect this offensive line, no matter what you do. But yes, Dave, to your point, the defense becomes even more important for this team and trying to achieve the goals that it wants.
I do wonder if Sonny Styles is starting to round into the linebacker we expect. I'm going to get Bax's thoughts on that in just a moment, but I want to let you guys know about Prize Picks. If you're into daily fantasy, you will love Prize Picks. I am into daily fantasy. I love Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. So all you got to do is download the Prize Picks app, use code Bucknuts, and you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. If you think Justin Jefferson will get more than 83.5 yards next week, do you think Christian McCaffrey is going to run for more than 75.5 yards? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season on Prize Picks. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Bax, is Sonny Styles, I'm not just talking about 2 sacks. Sometimes sacks can be misleading one way or the other. One of his sacks was just a great play by him. The other one, I think somebody else really, made the better play, and, he just was the benefactor from it. It's not just the sacks. He looks a little different to me, like he's rounding into maybe the linebacker we expected. What are you seeing out of Sonny Styles out there?
Well, I think Sonny Styles has definitely gotten better as the year has gone on. But I will say this. I have extremely high expectations for him the next 2 weeks because the styles of offense we're playing, I've said this before. Sonny Styles would have fit perfectly in the days of Hawk, Carpenter, Schlegel at linebacker when other teams ran the ball at you, and you played tackle to tackle at linebacker. Sonny struggles whenever the field gets so big and they have to cover and he has to stretch himself sideline to sideline a little bit more. He looked awesome against Iowa, for example, in that style of offense. He had a great game that game. It was maybe his best game before Northwestern. So Indiana and particularly Michigan, that's where Styles, I think, is going to be a big-time guy for Ohio State. But let's face it, too, the guy's gotten better as the course of the year's gone on. It's been fun to watch him improve. And you have to remember how young he is. I mean, right. He should essentially be a second-year player right now. And he graduated a year early from high school. So watching him improve has been a big deal. I think we're going to really see how improved he is. Not these next 2 weeks, though. It's going to be, does he play that well against Oregon if we hopefully get there?
Yeah, Patrick, I was a little disappointed in Sonny's play early in the year. And knowing all along, like Bax said, he really should be a sophomore right now. Knowing all along, he's never played linebacker before, but still, he's Sonny Styles, right? He's superhuman. He's going to come in and just be a stud linebacker from day one. That's not how it works. In fact, he struggled more than I thought he would at safety last year. But he feels like he's found his home. He looks like a linebacker at 6'4", 235. He certainly doesn't look like a safety. And it just feels like it didn't seem like the instincts were there. Like maybe he was thinking too much early in the year. Right? And again, I don't think he's arrived. I don't think he's like the best linebacker in the country or anything, but like he just seems like he's improved a lot since the beginning of the year.
Definitely has improved. And look, I think we expected him to improve, right? I keep using the comparison of like the video game, right? When you just move a guy, like his rating declines a little bit, maybe when you put him in a new position. Well, that's not real life. You have to actually learn the position. You have to learn all the intricacies of it, especially if you're going in and starting right away. It's not like he came in as a backup this year, was able to adjust, and then starting next year. No, he went from one position to another that were similar, but definitely not the same. And now you're seeing why the decision was made to make that move. They saw things in Sonny that were natural fits for the linebacker, and that's not just his size. And he's making plays. I also think they're using him better recently. I think the change in defense that we've talked about with pressures and bringing guys from different areas, a couple times last week, they did things where they brought two linebackers through one hole. If they've done that in the past, I've missed it. But that's not a complex thing. And Sonny wasn't, I don't even know if Sonny was a part of it, but just things like that utilize Sonny, utilize CJ Hicks's skills. I think you're finding ways to maximize the talent that you have and putting them in the best position, which is what Ryan Day's talked about. And Sonny's been a beneficiary of that, no doubt.
A lot of Caleb Downs love, and rightfully so. Bax, it's like, he's not putting up the stats he did at Bama last year, but my gosh, is he fun to watch. I mean, he's one of the best open field tacklers I've seen.
That tackle he made on the Northwestern tight end should go in every textbook video of how to open field tackle. Like that was, I think my phone had like 10 texts in the span of 2 minutes. Like, did you just see that? I'm like, I can't even reply to all of you. That was just, yeah. He's a special player. We all know he's a special player. He has an instinct for sniffing out a play. Up there with some of the most elite players you'll see. A comparison somebody made for me was he was a bit Troy Polamalu without the wild man hair. Yeah. And look, he's an exceptional player. He supports the run, and having him on this defense allows Ohio State to keep only two linebackers on the field. Just to be real candid, Lathan Ransom supports the run super well too. But Caleb Downs is a guy that his instincts for sniffing out plays is incredible, and he's such a good tackler. So that really stands out on the defensive side of the football. And look, here's the other thing. You're going to need him against Michigan because Michigan's only thing they're going to have is running the football. I mean, let's be real honest here.
I think Ohio State's defense is going to dominate Michigan. I'm not worried about. I mean, I'm not thrilled about the fact that Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant get to go against backup offensive linemen in the middle. But maybe Padilla, if it's Padilla, maybe he'll hold the fort down. If it's Siereveld, maybe he'll hold the fort down at left guard. We shall see. I want to ask about Indiana real quick, Patrick. I got a kick out of our guy Steve Hellwagon asking both Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. Was he asking a question or was he coaching the coaches? Because it felt like Steve was coaching the coaches, letting them know, hey, Curtis Rourke, Indiana quarterback, only has 17 rushing yards on the year. You see some Ohio State fans. Steve didn't say this. You'll see some Ohio State fans. I've seen this on Bucknuts and on Twitter. Oh, yeah, Rourke's a statue. Well, if you look at his stats this year, yeah, only 17 rushing yards all year. This young man had over 800 rushing yards during his career at Ohio University. It was cracking me up that Steve was Steve was talking to Ryan Day for like a minute, I think, right? I mean, and then he did the same thing with Jim Knowles. Like, you guys know this, right? It was almost like Steve was like putting them on, like, making sure that they were aware that Curtis Rourke is not a statue back there. But your thoughts on that and your thoughts on this matchup overall, Patrick?
Remember when Steve suggested to Urban that they use JT Barrett as a red zone quarterback?
And he did it. Yes.
And he did it. Yeah. This is not the first time Steve's pointed things out for the coaching staff. No, right.
Curtis was the offensive coordinator in 15. Now, 9 years later, Steve Hellwagon is now the co-defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Is that why Ed Warner doesn't like us? Steve Hellwagon took his job.
For those who don't know that story, Ed Warner actually blamed Bucknuts for getting him fired. We still have the proof. He sent us a private message on Twitter saying we were the reason he got fired as offensive coordinator. And we took the high road. The easiest response to no, you got yourself fired by running the most archaic offense I've ever seen at Ohio State.
You got yourself fired by not giving the ball to Zeke against Sparty.
We took the high road. But Ed Warner blames Bucknuts for getting him fired. Go ahead, Patrick. Sorry.
Well, I think if you've watched Indiana play, and I'm sure the coaching staff like Steve has, yes, he doesn't have a ton of rushing yards, Curtis Rourke, but he's still a mobile quarterback. You can see him move around in the pocket. So if you're looking beyond the stats, I think you at least know that. And I'm sure the Buckeyes had done some of their homework. But good on Steve for kind of getting that out there, because I do think it needs to be brought up. As you and I talked about yesterday, Dave, I think this is going to be a factor in this game. I think Will Howard running more is going to be a factor. I think both teams are going to utilize that at points throughout this game because of what it gives you advantage-wise, having, as Urban used to say, equating numbers and all that. So it's going to be important. Ohio State certainly has to be ready for it. But I do think, again, on the other side, the Hoosiers have to be ready for Will Howard, who against Northwestern had one rush maybe, and it was a goal line, at the goal line before Quinshon took it in. So the Buckeyes clearly weren't pulling anything out the week before playing Indiana. I do wonder if we see even more than we have from Will Howard and Curtis Rourke using their legs.
Going forward, I think in every game the rest of the year, however many games it is, I think Will Howard, the Q run is going to be a big part of this offense for the Buckeyes. We'll get you guys out of here with this. I want to get both of your thoughts on this. Bax, what's happened with Luke Montgomery? He was a guy, he played a lot right away as a true freshman. Ryan Day last year during camp was telling us Luke Montgomery's going to play a lot of football for us this year. I was like, damn, I didn't, because he enrolled early, and in spring ball of that year, he really was running with the third team. And all of a sudden I was like, yeah, Luke Montgomery's going to be basically the sixth man. And he played a lot in the opener against Indiana when they ran the Bison package. A lot of times it was Luke Montgomery in there. Now he's nowhere to be found. They have injuries. He still can't get in there. What's going on with Luke Montgomery? We'll get Patrick's thoughts on it as well.
I mean, the term sophomore slump is a real thing. Let's be honest. Some people have it, and it's just human. So I'm not saying Luke Montgomery is never going to play at Ohio State, but maybe things aren't going the way that he wants them to right now. That's a real consideration. And, look, there's a lot of guys that want to get on the field at Ohio State right now. And sometimes whenever you have success early as a kid at an elite level in sports, sometimes you have to find your footing to be able to regain that success when other people start putting in a significant amount of work. So it's probably just normal growing pains. But if he's not the most ready right now, it's not time to experiment. Because I would have said something if Luke Montgomery had been running more with these twos, been on the field a little bit more this year. He's a guy that you could also try playing inside. And it hasn't even been a consideration. I think we all expected him to play when Austin Siereveld played earlier this year, and when Siereveld had clearly passed him in the coaching staff size, at guard at least. Yeah,
I mean, I suppose it's a possibility that Montgomery could be in the mix. But I mean, for first half of the show, we're talking about two options, right? Talking about Padilla at center or move Hinzman to center and put Austin in at left guard. Patrick, what are you hearing? Or if you're not hearing anything specifically, what do you think's going on with Luke Montgomery? You went from being a huge part of the plans as a redshirt or as a true freshman to being missing in action as a sophomore.
I think some of it is finding the right position for Luke. You mentioned he was playing in that Bison package, played 44 snaps as a true freshman. This season has played 77, so he's played more, but it's come in a situation where I think most people thought he would take a step and maybe be one of those guards that's played. But I think it's still, where is he best suited to play? Is he an interior offensive lineman? Can he play tackle? And I don't know if they've come up with an answer for that. In fall camp, we saw him do some reps on the interior of the offensive line. He obviously stepped in there for, 1 or 2 snaps at the end against Nebraska when Donovan Jackson moved out, but then wasn't even really part of the conversation the next week as they moved Carson Hinzman in at the guards position. It's all very confusing. Why did Donovan Jackson and Carson Hinzman, why was that not your first option for the Nebraska game on the offensive line? Then when you do move Donovan Jackson out, why is Luke Montgomery your first guy? I know Carson Hinzman was probably repping as the backup center at that point, but if you just need a couple plays, why is that the guy you don't go to if he's the guy you go to next week? So I think it's all, you trying to figure it out on the fly, and maybe that's hurt Luke a little bit, but I thought he looked good in fall camp. I'm surprised he hasn't played more this year. And, I do think there's a talented player there, but I don't know what has held him back, honestly speculating in terms of trying to figure out a position.
Great stuff, guys. Wish we had a better, topic to talk about today other than the situation on the offensive line, but the really good stuff out of Patrick Murphy and Matt Baxendell.
Hey, Dave.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Real quick. I don't know. I assume people have seen Seth McLaughlin and the run the damn ball hats that he did for charity. I just wanted to say that this is a kid who came in here and has become an influential part of the locker room and the Columbus community. He's doing good, really good stuff. There's a reason he's up for awards that don't have anything to do with what you do on the field. And so I know we focus mainly on what this means on the football field, but Dave, you've talked to him, gotten to know him a little bit, as I have, as he's been here. It was clear very quickly when he arrived from Alabama that this was a kid that wanted to work, obviously had his issues down in Tuscaloosa to some degree. But I think, sometimes you forget the human element as a fan because you're not around these guys. We get the fortune to get to know these guys a little bit. Achilles injury isn't fun. I saw Heater posted on the front row today about his recovery from it and how he still feels that. We also think guys just come back from these injuries and don't ever have to deal with it. It's not the case. So just, from a human element, and I posted something like this on the thread last night. I really feel for Seth, who was, as we talked about, Bax, you mentioned potential All-American season. This was a kid who was forgotten about in terms of the eyes of the NFL. And hopefully this doesn't affect things too much, because I do think, he deserves to benefit from his work both on and off the field this season. And real quick, I saw the message earlier about the field turf. I'm no expert on field turfs. I'm not going to claim to be, but Achilles injuries happen. They've had one this season, unfortunately. And, could the turf be better? Probably. But I don't know if you blame this on turf. I know there was some reporting out there that he'd been dealing with a tight hamstring. I don't know where that came from or what the credit is for that. But, I think it's easy to just yell about the turf. And, as Dave, you and I have talked about before, I talked with Ross Bjork about it. They are comfortable with the turf there. Not saying that's right or wrong, but I don't know if you necessarily put one Achilles injury on Ohio State's turf's awful. They've played on it all season, both the practice field and obviously at the shoe. So just two things I wanted to throw out there at the end.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all the listeners out there. We appreciate that very much as well. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day.